Hey, it's Jen Mack, Lady of the Mind. Welcome to Life Mastery Decoded, where I help you decode the struggles in your life in the areas of health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality with mind mastery, emotional management, and meditation. Welcome to today's podcast. Hey, ladies, it's Jen Mack, Lady of the Mind. Welcome to today's episode where I hope I am finding you living your life in confidence. If you are not living your life in confidence, then it is my intention that in today's episode, I give you one nugget of inspiration towards your transformation. So today, we're going to talk about confidence. How can we build confidence? If I were to take you back in time to the mid-'80s, where I was in school and I was this weird, awkward little kid that just didn't know how things worked. I spent most of my childhood, certainly my adolescence and my early teens going, I just don't get it. I said that, I couldn't tell you how many times. Kids would say something or someone would say something and it would be this big joke and this big funny thing, and I would look around and I just didn't get it. I was always at the outside of all of these jokes. And then somewhere in my 20s, I started having relationship experiences and they all sucked. They were all terrible. And I remember just, at the end of a breakup, I'm just like, man, I just don't get it. There's people that have these successful relationships I just don't understand. And then I was taking on jobs and I was getting hourly rates and getting paychecks, and I was always at the end of my paycheck and didn't always have the funds to do things that were exciting in my life. I didn't always have the money left in my bank account. And I sit here and I look at money and I'm like, I just don't get it. Well, when you are living a life of things that that you just don't understand, it kind of takes a toll on your psyche. It takes a toll on your mental energy and the way you look at yourself. And so, of course, I am reconfirming that I'm just not smart enough. And why don't I get it? Why don't I have more money? And why don't I have, a girlfriend with this relationship that would be amazing? And why can't I work in this space, on this planet where I just can start to click in to life? And it really wasn't until probably the mid-'90s that I was going through a breakup, and it was probably the worst breakup in my life, and it was awful. It was awful. The relationship was terrible, and the breakup was worse. But I'm glad it's over. And anyway, so as I'm going through this breakup, I remember being at home and going, okay, I really want a relationship. I really want this healthy friendship, this loving, a teamwork kind of a relationship, where we're just a team and we just get each other and things are just cohesive. And I remember just in that asking, I was all of a sudden inspired to go to Borders bookstore. And so I go to Borders bookstore, and at this point in my life, I had not spent much time in the bookstore where I was looking at anything other than, entertainment type books. I certainly was not looking at any self-help books. And back then in the mid-'90s, self-help was always for crazy people or really, really weird people. And at this point, I didn't have many friends, if I had really any friends at all. My family all lived away, hours away from me. And so I really felt alone, not only alone on this planet, but now alone in my life, which is, if you've ever felt that, is really a terrible feeling. It's scary, it's terrible, it's empty, it's dark, it's slow moving energy. It was awful. And I remember walking in the door and I'm high inspired, I am being led, right? And I remember walking in the door, and I can picture this right now as if it happened yesterday. And I immediately went back to the back far left corner of the store, the self-help section. And at this point, I was so desperate to find true love and to really improve my relationships that I really didn't care. I would have climbed up on the roof for some assistance in this department, in this time in my life. And so I go all the way back to the bookstore and I see the big sign that says self-help. And it might as well say crazy people enter here. So anyway, so I go into this area of the bookstore And the whole time I'm thinking, I want a relationship book. There are people out there that have solid relationships, and I want one. I don't think that just because I'm gay that I should not have a solid, beautiful, loving, wonderful relationship. I disagree with that. Most of the time, these beliefs that people would put in front of me, I would disagree with, and I did my whole life. People would say, you don't have control of your life, God does. And I'm like, I don't believe that. And then they would say, you grew up poor, you're always going to be poor. I don't believe that. And I never doubted those beliefs. I always went against those kind of beliefs that made me feel terrible. If you tried to instill a belief in me that made me feel terrible, I would butt up against it. So anyway, I'm in the bookstore and I'm in the self-help section, and I just keep thinking about relationships. So I'm going, okay, well, where's relationships? Well, this is about, okay, that's that. I'm looking at all these books, and then this book stands out to me, and it's titled How to Win the Love You Want, or something like that. How to Win the Love You Want. And as I reach up and grab this book, it falls open to a page that is all about me being basically in control. And I don't mean controlling, just me being in charge of having a healthy relationship and a loving relationship, no matter what. And I was immediately empowered. So I sat down in this dark bookstore in the way far corner of the store, reading this book, and everything in me lit up. Everything in me just lit up about you can do it, and you can have a relationship, and these are the things that you can do, and maybe being this kind of person versus this kind of person is going to make you more attractive. Being clingy and whiny and playing the victim role is not really an attractive trait in a partner. Like standing forward and being confident and being respectable and having goals in your life and going forward and having this inspiration, this positive attitude, all of those things can be attractive attributes or characteristics of another person. So the book had two parts. One of those parts was the working on me part. So me standing my ground and being respected. This relationship breakup that I was going through was a very, very unhealthy, disrespectful relationship. This woman that I was dating, I'd been with for about 4 years, I would say cheated on me no less than 10 times. It was painful. It completely emptied everything good about me. I became literally a shell of a person walking around not caring about anybody or anything. My self-esteem was in the toilet. I felt completely empty. I had no love. I hated everything. I was negative. I was empty. I was an empty shell walking around this planet. And talk about depression and suicidal. I mean, I was all those things every day. I'm like, I really should end this. This is really ridiculous. I hate being here. I don't understand things. I want this, healthy relationship, and I don't know if I'm going to have it. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm pretty enough. I don't know if I'm smart enough. It all just went on and on in my head every single day. And then the toying was happening in this relationship too, where she would come back around and she would toy with me. Okay, I want to be with you. And I'd be like, okay, so stupid. Okay, I'll be with you too. And then, we'd be together for a couple of months, and then it would just happen again. Everything would happen again. And I just became angrier and angrier and angrier. And so by the time I came across this book, and I'm reading the first half of the book that is all about you and building you up as a person. So I'm thinking, you know what? I think this person's right. I think it's time that I focus on myself. I think it's time that I focus on myself in building my relationship with me. That, my friend, is step one in building confidence. Building the relationship with yourself. You are not going to gain confidence from out there. You're just not. There is no out there. There is only in here. And the in here is what reflects the out there. I really want to pound that home, and I say it, I'm pretty sure, in every single episode. The out there, the external world, is a direct reflection of your internal world. Here's a really good analogy. If your internal world is blue, your external world is also blue. If you don't like blue, then you have to change the internal to a different color. If you would rather it be pink, then you have to focus on the internal world changing to pink. Okay? I know that's probably not the best analogy, even though I did say that was the best analogy, or that was a great analogy, but I think you understand. So the stuff that you're creating in your life is what is going to show outward in your life. If I'm creating blue inside, that is what is going to be created outside, okay? So now the thing is to build that relationship with you. Now, how do we do that? Well, one of the ways to do that is to become your own best friend. And in becoming your own best friend, it is all about, the first step is getting to know yourself. What do you like? What do you value? What entertainment things do you like to do? What brings you joy? There was times where I was coaching back then, it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. I remember coaching this girl and was asking her, so what are the things that bring you joy? And she's like, well, my husband really likes to kayak, and so I like to kayak. I said, okay. And you're already hearing what I'm talking about right now. And I say, okay, so what other things bring you joy? Well, I guess another thing is my husband likes to hunt. And so I don't really like hunting, but I go with him, and I guess that brings me joy too. So this conversation went on and on. So every single thing that I asked her, what brings you joy? What do you like? What do you value? First, she would answer what her husband values, what her husband likes, what brings her husband joy. She never once answered the question about what really brings her joy. It's not really hunting. Maybe it's hiking. Maybe it's sewing. Maybe it's quilting. Maybe it's crafting. Maybe it's water skiing. Maybe it's learning to fly an airplane. She never once could answer that question. So I ask you right now, one of the activities or exercises that you could do is to, you always love, get out a piece of paper, get out your journal, get out your notebook, and write down at the top, what do I like? And underline several times the word I. What do I like? When I was with this girl, this really terrible relationship, at that point, and I still do, I loved biking, hiking, camping. Rock climbing was huge. I love rock climbing. And she basically, of any of those things, sort of liked camping, though she was a little bit complaining about it, but it wasn't bad. But she did not at all like rock climbing. She was afraid of heights. And so there were times that we would go rock climbing. Well, we wouldn't go together. She would go with me and I would climb, but she'd stay on the ground. And a new gym came to town, a new rock climbing gym. And I bought a membership. And then I started working there because it was cheaper than the membership. So I started working at this climbing gym, and I was working all day on Friday. And I said, why don't you meet me at the gym? And, at the last couple of hours, it was always really slow. And so I would climb. I would climb when there weren't other guests there, and I would help people if they showed up or whatever. But when it was pretty slow and empty, I would climb. And I said, why don't you come over and you can, hang out with me for a few minutes, and then once I close up, then we'll go out to dinner. So she comes over, and I'm like, okay, so, no one's around, so we're just kind of playing, well, we aren't, I am. I'm like, it's called bouldering, where I'm not using a rope or anything, and I'm not very high off the ground, and I'm just kind of climbing, pretty low to the ground. And so I'm just kind of playing around. I said, come on. I said, come try this, whatever. And she would sort of try it, but she's just like, I just don't like climbing. I'm like, okay. So anyway, so from that point on, that was literally the only time she would go. Well, I totally understand. I get it. But the problem that arose from that is that because she didn't like it and she wouldn't go with me, I stopped going. That gym ended up closing, and so now I go and get some other job. And another wall opened that was open. It was in a school gymnasium that was open to the public a couple days a week. And I would start climbing there. And she wouldn't go with me. She wanted to stay home. And I'm like, so, here it's Thursday and the climbing wall is open from like 5 to 10. And I said, so I'm going to go climbing. Do you want to go with me? No, I'm just going to stay home, watch TV. And I found myself also staying home. But then what happened is I started to stay home and then I started to resent her. So she would say, hey, go climbing if you want to climb. I'm like, well, no, I don't want to climb by myself, which of course I don't care. I'll climb by myself. But at this point, I wanted to find something together to do together, but she didn't want to go. And I stopped going. And then I stopped bike riding. And then I stopped camping. Do you see where we're going? So of course, now what are we doing? Not much. Eating dinner at home, watching a lot of TV, fighting every time she cheats on me. And it just became this downward spiral. So I could imagine if somebody were to ask me, hey, Jen, what brings you joy? I would say, well, she doesn't really like rock climbing. I used to like rock climbing, but I don't anymore. So I guess I just like TV. I will tell you right now, TV does not bring anybody joy. It's a mindless activity. It just numbs the senses. So anyway, because I stopped doing those things, I then became an empty shell. I became just this empty person who had no joy. And it really, energetically, I understand why the relationship went so sour. But anyway, so now I ask you to make this list. Build the relationship with yourself. Start to get to know yourself and ask any questions that you would ask another person that you were really interested in getting to know. What foods do you like? What trips would you like to go on? What things would you like to do that are like on your bucket list? What activities do you like? What are your big dreams and aspirations? Ask yourself those questions. Get to know you. The next, as you're building a relationship, first is getting to know yourself. The next is spend more time with you. Spend more time with yourself. So in these, like I still like rock climbing, and I could go to the gym by myself. My relationship with Amy is not dependent on us constantly 100% of the time spending time with each other. Do we love each other? Yes, absolutely. Do we love spending time together? Yes. Do we have lots of things in common? Yes, we absolutely do. But I would still go rock climbing, I'd go cycling, I would go hiking, I would do any and all of those things by myself. But she would also go with me. She also likes those things. So is it important to find some common ground with your partner? Yes, of course. But that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about building your self-confidence. This is building you up inside, getting to the point of, I really like myself. I could spend time by myself. So as you're spending time with you, it's doing these things that you love on your own. Spend time crafting or hiking or biking or climbing or playing a musical instrument or knitting or crocheting, whatever it is that's on this list. So just like when we like somebody and we want to spend time with that somebody, is we spend time with them. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing, is spend some time with yourself. Another thing that I would ask is that you give a little introspection. So this is time where you're just pondering things. You're getting to know yourself at a different level, but you're also starting to spend that quiet time with yourself where you're just staring out the window or maybe enjoying a relaxing meditation or a hot bath where you are getting to know yourself at this different level of being. The quiet you, the quiet space in between all of our noisy thoughts. And I think that it's important, I know that it's important to have this introspection because it connects you to the energy of this universe. And that is the next thing, is get to know your guides. Ask for signs. Ask for assistance, ask for advice, ask them to show you things. Ask them to reveal themselves to you in a beautiful way. When we do stuff like this and we start to elicit the help of our guides, we tend to feel connected. And the more connected that you can feel to Mother Earth and the skies above and the energies to be, the more that those physical relationships meld together and go deeper because of your connection with yourself. You've also heard me say in many podcasts that we can only love another person to the depth that we love ourselves. We can only love another person to the depth in which we love ourselves. So this is where that bucket analogy becomes so clear, because if I have a teaspoon-sized bucket of love for myself, how much love can I really give to another person? Not much, because I only have a teaspoon size. But if I have a giant 50-gallon drum of love for myself, that this giant bucket of self-love and self-care, how much now can I give to other people? A whole bunch. I can scoop a cup or a gallon out and still have a ton to give others. So this is where self-love and self-care come in, which is my next point. Self-love and self-care. And I believe that the more we take care of our own heart and our own health, that we will be able to build into that confidence. Because if you stand around and you watch people in front of you, and those people that you see that have ill health, ask them how they feel about themselves. Ask them how they really love themselves. And I can almost guarantee you that the love for themselves is not going to be that great. Because there's parts of you that need to be given attention to, and that is your physical being. You have been given basically one house, and that is your physical body. And if you don't take care of that house, where are you going to live? Nobody wants to live in a house that has a leaky roof or big drafts or a house that's too small. We want to live in a house that creates comfort. And when you take care of your body in a healthy way, you now have a comfortable dwelling. And if you're not taking care of your body, then I ask you, why not? Why aren't you taking care of your body? Why aren't you looking to yourself to create that loving, beautiful relationship with you? Going deeper. And self-care and self-love is not selfish. I have a podcast about that. Self-care is not selfish, or self-love is not selfish. Putting yourself above others in a way that neglects or pushes others down, that is selfish. But filling your own bucket for then the care and the intention of taking care of other people and giving love away to other people, that is true self-love. I love myself enough that I'm going to take a break so I can be more patient with my kids. I love myself enough that I'm going to fill my bucket while my spouse is at work, so then when they come home, we can spend very good, high quality time together. That is self-love. Filling your own bucket. So what will you do? What will you do the rest of this week or the upcoming weeks to create the self-confidence? Taking care of your physical being, taking care of your mental being. If you need to learn something new, if there is something in your life, just like when I was in that relationship, it is my responsibility to learn something new if I want to change something. If I want to lose weight, then I have to learn how to feed and fuel my body and how to work my body so I can burn off fat. If I want to have a healthy relationship, then it is my responsibility to learn the kind of person I need to be to create that kind of relationship. If I want to start a business, then it's my responsibility to learn new things. When I'm able to put new ideas into my head, into my mental space, that creates this confidence. When I'm learning to create my own business, learning how to do a podcast and researching that to understand what microphone should I be using, what recording software should I use, what editing software should I use to create the best outcome for my people or my audience. Well, that is my responsibility. And if I can do that, if I can take charge of that tiny little area of my life, that creates confidence. And that is fueling and feeding my mental energy. So if you're continuing to listen to this, and I invite you to join me in Lady Rising, a Facebook group where we meet and build this community of like-minded women that help to support and hold space for one another so you can continue to go on the spiritual journey with the friendship, the camaraderie, and the support that you need. I hope you will take advice from me and building your confidence and creating this space where you just love yourself and you can stand back and look and say, you know what? I am my own best friend. If you liked this episode and look forward to future episodes, please consider making a small monthly donation to help support this podcast. If you are looking for a community to join and have more access to me, then consider one of the following platforms. Chakras for Beginners is an energy-based community that is highly active and growing every day. Lady Rising is a sistership community where the focus is on spiritual support and connection. We hold monthly calls and talk about topics such as today's episode. We also have an online store where you can meet your meditation and chakra needs with products for your journey. You can visit us at www.themeditationroomtc.com. Thank you for joining me and being a valued listener.